A governor claimed that cartoons of old never challenged gender roles, leading Bugs Bunny to trend the day before his national commemoration. So, of course, you realize this means podcast.
Are you ready, eager young space cadet?
Meep, meep.
I saw a pussy
That is the limit!
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Hello and welcome to Of Course You Realize This Means Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Graves, and with me today is my pleasure to bring on a fellow fan of animation and a voice actor in her own right, Jenny Lorenzo, to the podcast. Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing swell.
Awesome.
How are you?
I'm so glad to have you and to discuss this wonderful topic of Bugs Bunny, who we both love and adore.
An icon.
Indeed, in every right. So you are no slouch when it comes to voice acting. You are on Jellystone as well as Victor and Valentino.
Victor and Valentino,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. And you work for Cartoon Network, so you're
Yeah.
kind of connected to Bugs Bunny in that way.
That, and also, I always talk about this when I talk at universities and stuff about, you know, living in the hyphen and being Cuban and American. And my first language was Spanish, but I always talk about how I learned English via the Academy of Looney Tunes and Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Perfect.
Because that's what I grew up watching. Like,
Yeah.
I distinctly remember as a 5-year-old watching Daffy Duck and Sylvester
Yep.
and Tweety and Bugs and the whole gang. And I'm like, my mom always would tell me, she's like, yeah, you started learning English that way before you went to school. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
how
cool.
that's how far back it goes.
That's incredible. They're
Yeah.
near and dear to all our hearts, I think. And, you know, as an American, we have, you know, this icon who brings in these non-traditional and traditional values into TVs all across America whenever it was, or I guess like across the world now that I'm seeing, because I've talked to people in Australia who love Looney Tunes and so many places. So it is far reaching. And that is such a rarity when it comes to syndication, when it comes to, I guess, politics and media and how far reaching they can actually be, to where one thing will be funny to one group of people and then they might offend another group of people. But in all instances, it's unapologetically out there. Mm-hmm. And that is such... I mean, we're never going to see that age again.
No.
So Looney Tunes was definitely in a specific time and place. And yes, a lot of those things that it did where, you know, racism and other things that got through, there was war propaganda against specific races. And, you know, obviously those are terrible things. And they were not funny then and they're not funny now. But they are not to be erased. They're not to be like brushed under the rug and never to be talked about. So what I wanted to have a discussion on is Bugs Bunny in drag.
Yes.
He, as a non-binary character, is able to, and that is canon, by the way. Chuck Jones has said that he is a non-binary rabbit character. Mm-hmm. And he is able to put on a skirt and rock it in like the matter of seconds to outwit his opponents, his adversaries. And we have, I want to say like maybe a handful of characters in media that do that. Obviously, you can take it back to the Greeks and their mythological, like the trickster trope, and how and it's also like Loki, where they're able to manipulate their adversary using a number of tricks and everything like that. And cross-dressing was always a part of that. Even the vaudevillians did that whenever they were on stage and, you know, playing out these situational comedic, performances and stories. And that translated beautifully into animation back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And we're going to talk about some of those today. But what was it as for you as a child whenever you saw Bugs in drag? Did it ever rub you the wrong way, or were you just laughing along with what was happening on screen?
The latter.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever feeling that there was something wrong. I think it could also be because I grew up watching a lot of vaudeville and clown school trained actors like Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball.
Right.
To me, it just felt like it was a part of that world of comedy. So I wasn't thinking, oh, it's a boy rabbit dressed like a girl. Like it was just like, yeah, this is one of his tricks. It's one of his gimmicks. And I think the way he was animated and the way the stories were told when he would cross-dress, he's just so confident. And that's why it makes sense that he's non-binary, that they're non-binary.
Right.
It's a non-binary rabbit. Because it's just an effortless transition. As in, this has always been Bugs. Like,
right.
It's not just, I always saw it as more than a trick, I guess, if that makes sense. I know that was used in the, against a lot of his adversaries and stuff like that. But for me, like, my little backstory of Bugs is just like, he kind of did this. Like, he's a drag queen.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he did. Like, this was part of his life and his identity.
And Bugs Bunny in drag actually was one of the first instances for RuPaul to see that in media and to, go down that path and be the representation that he is or that they are.
Yeah.
And, it's important for all genders to see that there is this other option for them. It's not just male and female anymore. And it never was. It never was.
Yeah, and it's also not embarrassing to be feminine.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
Bugs totally embraced it.
Yes.
To the nines. It wasn't just like, I'm going to put on a crappy wig and a skirt. Bugs had a closet.
Yes.
And knew how to apply makeup.
He
like,
did.
like this was, you know what I mean? Like, so that's how I knew that this is beyond just him. He wasn't making fun of being feminine. At least that's not what I took from it. I know some people could potentially debate that, but
I didn't see it that way either.
Yeah.
And also, you're talking about his wardrobe. I was going to give it to you to describe some of these costumes that he's wearing in these shorts that we're going to talk about, because from the classic hat and wig combo to the mini skirt or the pink blouse, and like everything about it just screams like, this is a fashionista. Like, they know how to carry themselves and how to present themselves to the world. And that's Bugs.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they knew exactly what they were doing and what they were going to wear depending on who the person was. And it wasn't always like the same getup. It was always different.
Oh, always different.
That I was like, how many wigs does Bugs own?
Infinite. An infinite amount of wigs.
More wigs than me. I'm like, whoa. Like, I'm just like, damn, Bugs looks hot. Like, as someone who's bi, I'm like, Bugs looks real cute. And the lipstick application and the false eyelashes. And it's just like I wanted to do my makeup like Bugs. And I still can't. But RuPaul nailed it.
He did. He did. And there will be others that nail it too. And it's not, it's not a conversation that stops here. The conversation will continue, and it needs to continue.
Yeah.
So let's break it down a bit, and let's go back to the source material and have a look at that. But before we do, I wanted to commemorate Bugs Bunny Day because we just had it. It was April 30th. And on that day, the Happy Rabbit joined the Merry Melodies in Porky's Hare Hunt.
Oh, here I come.
You're sure glad to get rid of that dope.
That's what you think.
And that is why we commemorate Bugs Bunny, because of his endured love around the world, and for him being this icon of, across genders and for kids and adults alike. And, only 2 cartoon characters have commemorative days. It's Bugs and Mickey. That's it.
That's wild.
Not SpongeBob,
Yeah.
not Peter Griffin, these 2.
These 2. Just, oh my gosh, that's mind-blowing.
Right?
But it's so true.
Very true. And I saw Bugs Bunny was trending the day before, and I was like, I didn't recall exactly April 30th. I knew it was around there. And whenever Bugs was trending on April 29th, I was like, we're really close to something. We're really close to a special day for him, but it's not today. So what is happening?
Uh-huh.
And it just so happened that on April 29th was the day that the inept words of a governor of Florida were said. Someone who is so out of touch with civilization, I want to say. So from Ron DeSantis, he is a governor of Florida here in the States, and he is going after Disney for injecting sexuality into the programming for these very young kids. Mm-hmm. Those are his words.
Of course.
And let me continue with his words. When we were young, you could watch cartoons without having to worry. No parents have to sit there and worry about what they're trying to inject in us. What kind of ideologies are they trying to pursue? And that is wrong. And that led to a lot of people taking to Twitter and championing against the Don't Say Gay bill and pulling up all of these wonderful gifs of Bugs Bunny in drag.
Yeah, that was a great day on Twitter. That was a fantastic day on Twitter.
It really was. And it also allowed for this recognition to happen for people that were not accustomed to seeing Looney Tunes to get a whiff of these classics in this way. And so hopefully they go and watch these and they can expand that conversation within themselves. So you heard these words. What was your reaction?
I'm like, has this guy ever watched television before? Because I always talk about for me, I'm like, have you read a comic book? Did you actually watch cartoons in the 90s? Because X-Men is inherently political and
right.
pretty much most comics. So I hate when people are like, oh, they're making it political. I'm like, wow, you didn't, you missed it. You missed the message. But, dude, I mean, beyond Looney Tunes, freaking Animaniacs, the stuff that they got away with, right, and yeah. I'm starting to think about Nickelodeon, Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, Ren and Stimpy for sure.
I'm just like, we watched a lot of wacky stuff in the night. I mean, even Pee-wee's Playhouse, which is, mixed media, I would say,
sure,
with live action, but it was wackadoo.
Yeah.
And they got away with a lot of stuff. You rewatch a lot of it, and you're just like, these are jokes for adults. And again, Bugs and drag. It was just it makes you. I don't know. I just these people are stuck in a vacuum. I don't know what Ron. I'm wondering what TV Ron watched. For him to say that, because
only PBS. I mean,
Mr. Rogers, maybe.
But I don't know if he knows this, but even Mr. Rogers voiced the male and female puppets on that show.
I know.
And so already,
and he was a progressive.
He was a progressive.
So maybe not Mr. Rogers, and definitely not Reading Rainbow, because LeVar Burton would not dare.
So who knows?
Everything that. Oh my gosh! Look, I'm from Florida. I say that with a lot of pain in my chest. Obviously live in LA now. And every time Ron DeSantis, who everyone lovingly calls Death Santis, for obvious reasons, every time he tweets something, I just want to buy a castle in Ireland and just leave, or do the Bugs Bunny gif and saw off the state of Florida.
Yes.
Bugs knew.
Bugs
knew before any of this. But this one, in part, again, they're all annoying, and they're all just illogical and terrible and ignorant.
Yes.
The list goes on.
All the
But
above.
that one in specific made me laugh so hard because I knew he was absolutely wrong, and I'm just like, what cartoons were you watching? Because for the most part,
Well, we were all watching Bugs and Drag, and
Absolutely.
it was on ABC every morning.
yes, it was one of the biggest cartoons in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially in the States. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I was 5 years old watching this.
Right.
My parents didn't find anything. No one was ever like, oh, you can't watch Looney Tunes because Bugs is in drag.
Because our parents loved it as well.
Yes, they did.
Like, we were not indoctrinated into this. We embraced it. Joyfully, we embraced it. And it was funny. And it was made by people from Texas and people from California. Like, they knew what was funny back then. And they knew where their ideology for humanity was. And they pushed forth these ideas onto these characters who are sometimes more human than we are.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Bugs isn't the only cartoon that's done drag
No.
from our childhood.
Wile E. Coyote also did drag.
Wiley,
But who else are you thinking?
Genie,
Oh, the genie from Aladdin.
and then Pinky. And Pinky and the Brain briefly did, and Robin Hood. Mm-hmm. There's a scene in Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood, the animated film, where he and Little John have to dress up as women in order to get into this like carnival.
Right.
And then, oh my gosh, the biggest icon of all, next to Bugs Bunny, is him from Powerpuff Girls.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, Mr. Quackers, am I the only one who hates those miserable little brats? You hate them too? Oh, I knew I could count on you. But how could I possibly beat them with all that throng surrounding them? What's that you say? Yes, that's brilliant.
That to me was I didn't know what non-binary was at that age. I think I was like 12, 13 when I was watching Powerpuff Girls. But I knew for a fact that him was a queer character of some kind.
Absolutely.
That almost, again, I didn't know the term non-binary, but I had the sense watching him that they were genderless in a way.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. Thank you for bringing that up. That is a character that is definitely not talked about enough, especially in today's day and age, and should have their place in a conversation like this.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing them up. Yes, him was a Powerpuff Girls antagonist who definitely showed signs of femininity while also being very manly in ways, and and their appearance. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, like as a kid, I saw that as non-binary, even though I didn't have a word for it.
For Latinos growing up, for us, like our non-binary icon was Walter Mercado.
Okay.
Have you heard of Walter
I am not
Mercado?
familiar.
There's a great documentary about him on Netflix because he passed not long ago. Some years ago he passed, but he's like this. Let me find like a proper way to describe him because I don't want to like.
Actually, I have seen this because Sabina was a big fan.
Yeah, for sure Sabina knows who Walter Mercado is. I have like a little air freshener, Walter Mercado air freshener in my car. So he's this like, he's a Puerto Rican astrologer, but he started off as an actor, dancer, but he became known as an astrologer, fortune teller, psychic. And he was everything to a lot of people, especially like older women. Like my grandma would not miss every time he was on TV giving people their horoscopes. And so the documentary is very endearing. You really get to find out more about them. Until this day, their identity is in terms of their queer identity, it was never really talked about, but they are known as a queer non-binary icon.
Okay.
And as a kid, I had the same feelings about Walter as I did about a character like him.
Right.
Who I know with Bugs was, for me, I guess, the way I digested a character like Bugs was like, Bugs is a boy who's also comfortable with femininity and drag, right? Whereas
1,000%.
him that is it. Like, they are non-binary, full-on character. They never change out of their outfit. This is who they are 24/7. And that's how Wardet was. So there was like those similarities, except obviously him is a villain. But it was that same, again, as a kid, because they don't talk to us about these things, which is why education is so important. And Ron DeSantis doesn't want to teach kids. So I'm just here having feelings about things and just putting things together because I didn't have the proper education to know.
No, absolutely. And same. Yeah. I think we all are going through life in that respect. And we would like more education on these things. Yeah. You know, that'd be nice. Whoever wants to, I guess, start a YouTube show.
For real.
Let's dissect some of these examples of Bugs in drag through some pretty great shorts, I want to say.
Yes.
So I had you watch 3 classic Bugs shorts, and being a Bugs fan, I'm sure that was not hard homework.
No.
So let's start with Bedeviled Rabbit.
Octopuses, penguins, people, warthogs, yaks, newts, walrus, gnu's, wildebeestes. What? No rabbits? Especially rabbits. What's up, Doc? Jeez, what a grouch. Rabbit. Put me down. I'm not a rabbit. I'm a monkey, and monkeys are definitely not on your menu.
This is a 1957 short directed by Bob McKimson, written by Ted Pierce, and it is Bugs against Taz in Tasmania. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite Bugs gifts actually comes from this. Whenever he crash lands in Tasmania in that cargo box full of carrots, the box crashes and he just like wakes up out of this like coma of eating all these carrots and is like, "What? Where am I?"
Hey, what happened? Take a little nap in a carrot patch, and the next thing I know, I'm here. But where is here?
Relatable.
And he goes on to get the best of, you know, these vaudevillian gags over on Taz, because Taz is just a dummy who is just going through life and eating everything he can.
Apparently everything except monkeys.
Everything except monkeys for some reason, yeah. So Bugs exploits that.
Yes, immediately goes to that.
You didn't say monkeys, so I'm going to be a monkey.
Yeah.
And Taz immediately sees through that disguise and chases Bugs. One of my favorite ones is Bugs is tricking him by hiding behind these trees. And then as Taz is tunneling through one of the trees, Bugs comes out and says,
"Hey, baggy eyes." I wonder what Tasmanian devil little thin pancakes would taste like.
This ends with Bugs going to a Trader Mac's, which I'm not exactly sure who Trader Mac is, or if that's a reference to something.
It could be Trader Joe's cousin. That was the first thing I thought about when I saw that.
There we go. Maybe it's Trader Joe's
or Trader
cousin.
Sam's
or
if you're
Trader
a Disney
Sam's
fan.
Cousin. Yeah, it's the anti-Disney, so Trader Mac.
Trader Mac. Yeah, that's true.
And he goes and he collects all these props and costume essentials to become a she-devil. Taz sees Bugs in this costume, complete with lipstick and a bear trap for his jaws. And he's, standing there. And all of a sudden, Bugs calls him John, and Taz calls her Marcia. And I have no idea where these names come from, but they're hilarious.
Marcia.
John. Marcia.
So clearly Taz is infatuated, or John is infatuated with Marcia. And there's this romance brewing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, another she-devil enters the picture. And is it the wife? Is it the mother?
Claude! She's a nice lady.
I'm confused.
I mean, my first thought was wife.
My first thought was wife too, but then I watched it again and I was like, oh, this could be like his mother or somebody that is just
yeah.
against Taz dating.
That is very, yes.
Yeah, so like I did not know
Could very well be.
what this the role of this.
Well, she starts
other
smacking the heck
she-devil
out of
was.
him.
She does, and she calls him Claude.
Claude!
So is Taz John or Claude? I don't, or is Taz?
That's right. I didn't actually catch that. That's, yeah.
Yeah, it's super bizarre.
I wish I could just first of all, time travel and be a fly on the wall in these writers' rooms.
Oh my
back
God,
then.
that is my dream, like every day.
Freaking, oh my gosh, how fun. Who cares? Let's name him Claude. I don't know. Like, they're all smoking cigars. I don't freaking know what these dudes are doing in the late 50s.
They're burning their trash in their backyards. Yep.
Oh, who cares? Who's going to notice? Or maybe it was an inside joke.
Maybe. I really don't know.
Hilarious.
I find it hysterical.
Yeah.
And Taz has always been Taz to me. All these other monikers that happen are just circumstantial. They don't stick.
They don't, because I wouldn't remember that.
Right. You can call him Steve. You can call him Michael. I don't know what you care.
Is that a
call
running
him.
gag, you think?
Oh,
Like, I wonder if there's other instances where Taz is named something else.
Now I'm going to pay extra attention when Taz shows up. He's only in a handful of shorts.
Yeah.
So it's very simple to go through and see. I know for a fact in his first appearance, he's only called Taz.
Makes sense.
So maybe that was a later addition to.
That would be
running
funny.
Gag of calling
See,
him
I
other
should have been a
things.
writer. I should have been a writer on Looney Tunes in 1957.
Every directing team handled Bugs in drag in their own way, but it was always a part of the character. So when I thought of these three shorts, I didn't go to the well of Jones and be like, oh, Chuck Jones shorts always had Bugs in drag. I'm going to pull from those. No, I wanted to get three different directors and three different writers and pull together these examples to see if there's any commonality between Bugs's performance in a woman's costume, or if it's just how they saw a trickster using a technique to get one over on their adversary in their own way.
Yeah.
And in Bedeviled Rabbit, it obviously blows up for Taz, but I don't know what Bugs's end game was, because there's no way Bugs could have known that there was another she-devil out there that was going to come slap the side of Taz like up and down to take him out of the equation.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious because I think with other directors, I feel like Bugs has more of an end game. So this one I just feel like came out of a bit of nowhere, but it's still funny. It's a funny gag. And again, the drag is never seen as derogatory. Like Bugs is never at fault of an insult while wearing women's clothing. Mm-hmm. He's just doing it to get one over on the adversary. Like obviously whenever Bugs kisses somebody, it pulls down their guard and like they are very vulnerable to the attack. And so with this, obviously Bugs does kiss Taz, and maybe that's where he thought it would end because he had the steel trap around Taz's mouth.
And Taz was still enamored.
Exactly. So, maybe Bugs could have gotten away from that point, but they needed the other character to come in and put a pin in it to really put an exclamation point on
I can see that.
Bugs winning one over.
Yeah. because watching these shorts, I didn't see that in these specific shorts, but I'm wondering and I'm asking you because you've seen more recently, how do the adversaries tend to react once they find out it was Bugs?
Oh, usually they're very aggressive toward him. And they're like, oh, he got one over on me, and now I'm mad again.
But
like,
they're not mad about the fact that that they kissed a boy?
No.
Yeah. That's what I figured, because I never recall that feeling of like, because let's be honest, I mean, I've rewatched recently a bunch of like 90s like live action.
Sure.
And there's so many transphobic jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, ew, it's a dude in a skirt, or it can see his, and I'm like, oh gosh, that makes me so uncomfortable now.
Specifically Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura, White Chicks.
White Chicks, yeah.
That was one that I recently saw, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many transphobic jokes. But I don't ever recall that and it wasn't in these shorts, so it was something I was thinking about.
I don't think it ever happens.
Yeah, like they're angry because it's like, it's Bugs.
Right, yeah.
But not because I can't believe I just kissed a dude.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Say, you wouldn't be that screwy wabbit, would you?
Could be.
Doggone you, old mean wabbit. I'll twig that wabbit. I'll set my wabbit twat.
That's almost mind-blowing, I guess, because considering the time.
Right.
Because even in the 90s, which was still much later than the 50s when this all started, they were being pretty, non-PC about that. But the fact that they portrayed it in such a positive way still is pretty astonishing, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would also say that.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
But you were telling me that some folks have a different debate on that.
Yeah, so I pulled up some essays in my research and saw other people's takes on Bugs in drag. And actually, a pretty good example is when Jenna Elfman is sitting at a table across from Bugs Bunny in Looney Tunes Back in Action, and Bugs goes into a Marilyn Monroe-esque outfit, and she goes,
we team you up with a hot female co-star.
Usually, I play the female love interest.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello.
About the cross-dressing thing in the past, funny. Today, disturbing.
Lady, if you don't find a rabbit with lipstick amusing, you and I have nothing to say to each other.
she has this stance against it.
Against just cross-dressing?
Against cross-dressing, yeah.
Do they think it's transphobic?
I have no idea. And I don't know if that came from like an executive at WB to have that in there. It feels like it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really taken aback by that. But yes, there are some stances from people who believe that Bugs is negatively portraying an LGBTQIA persona when putting on a costume and representing something he's not. And I would say it's not that black and white. Like,
no.
It's definitely, there's a lot of gray in this gray hair.
It reminds me of I'm a big fan of the sketch show Portlandia with Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein, and they play these two iconic characters they play these two lesbians who work at this feminist bookstore called Women and Women First.
So, this is our new batch of books. I think we should just kind of go through it and make sure that it's what we want in the store.
Okay, great.
A new girl order.
It's a top-selling author. Do we want that in here?
No, we want bottom-selling authors.
Fred is playing a woman. And they filmed at a real bookstore. A real feminist bookstore. And at a certain point, I think maybe season 4, season 5, the production got kicked out from the store.
Oh, wow.
Because they felt that Fred's portrayal of this female character was transphobic. And as a character actor myself, I'm like, I don't think this is true. It's something that's been done in comedy many times. And I think as long as you're truthfully portraying a character, like you're becoming this person, you're not making fun. Like I'm not making fun of being in a man's body, right? If I were to do a gender swap.
Sure.
Or, and so that debate has always kind of, I guess, stumped me because, again, it's something that I grew up with. I mean, Lucille Ball would always cross-dress. And
all the time.
And it goes both ways. I know a lot of times we're so used to seeing, like, straight men play women.
I can never have children. We can adopt some. But you don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
But a lot of my favorite female comedians have done it as well, and including Carrie Brownstein, who would also play men characters in Portlandia.
And Fred Armisen is like a really nice guy. Like, I don't see him.
I mean, no,
bringing
but
any
they're both very progressive people,
Sure.
and they're both feminists, and I know, again, I don't know them personally, but I've seen them in enough interviews and articles, and I read Carrie's like bio. I'm a huge fan. Yeah. And again, like Key and Peele's another example, or any sketch show.
Sure.
There's always cross-dressing, but
Sure.
they're not like making fun of the gender that they're playing. They're being truthfully that character, and that's what you learn as a character actor. That's what you learn in Groundlings, to just really embody that person. But I do think there are folks out there who think that's actually wrong.
Oh, there definitely are.
You know? And
yeah.
It's tough when you know that's not your intention.
Exactly.
So same with Bugs is how I feel.
Yeah, no, astutely put. And I think it's more about the conversations that are lacking in that department than anything else. Like,
yeah.
Really, it's an education issue, and it's definitely, something that the media doesn't need to teach people. It's something that they need to be taught. Like, they need to seek the teachings.
Yeah.
And educate themselves outside of what the media is saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Is there anything you wanted to add to Taz and his love interest or admiration for Bugs and Drag?
I mean, the fact that Marsha was able to stick a bear trap in her mouth is a feat. Jinx! I was like, dang, what the heck? Like, at first I wasn't sure what Bugs was trying to do there. I was like, but then I'm like, oh, duh, she-devil,
oh, yeah.
Realistic teeth, I don't know. It was like, whoa, next level. Bugs does not. They always do the most.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But, that was also the end game, was getting the trap shut.
Getting the trap shut on his mouth, which, yeah.
Yeah. So moving on, let's discuss another short that I hold near and dear to my heart. Hair Trimmed. This is a Friz Freleng short written by Warren Foster in 1953 and has Bugs going up against Yosemite Sam.
Open up! Open up that door!
Coming!
Now I got Emma!
Oh, you're cute.
Yahoo!
Who finds out that Granny has inherited $50 million, and this is back in 1953, so you can only imagine how much money that is today. And he has I guess it's his own detriment, but he speaks aloud his plan for doing one over on Granny and stealing all of her money. One of my favorite lines comes from this in any Yosemite Sam short. It's when Yosemite says, "When I get my hands on that money, I'll buy the old lady's house and kick the old ladies out." He'll also have the orphanage torn down and get rid of the police department. Now, one of those, not so bad.
No, he's multi-dimensional.
But in the 50s, I can see why Bugs would take it upon himself to be the Boy Scout and to stand against this criminality of falsities. Mm-hmm. And, take on the disguise of another suitor who is foreign, and Mel Blanc puts on this really funny mix of Bugs and Pepe Le Pew to come across as this suave French foreign gentleman.
Aha! I find thee, my little pigeon. Fly with me to Paris. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my! 20 years, nothing. And then it all piles up in one day.
Yosemite sees this competition and he goes,
You darn dude! I'll give you a taste of leather!
he just slaps him with a glove. And then Bugs is taken aback, but then immediately pulls out a brick and puts it in one of his gloves and then slaps him back. And
Always
then
have a brick
back,
handy.
Cuts back to Bugs and he's getting all the shards of brick out of his glove because it completely broke against Yosemite's head. Hilarious.
Hilarious. I'm like, how did that even happen? Jesus. Yosemite has a real thick skull.
Well, it's got to be thick for his attempts at becoming rich.
Absolutely.
So Granny, the nice old lady that she is, voiced by Bea Bernadette, is just wonderful in this role. And she's so sweet and so kind. And, she invites him in. And, she has a really funny line when she's getting chased by Bugs. And she's like, 50 years, nothing. And then it all happens in in a matter of 2 minutes. So she is obviously looking for a suitor of some sort because she's entertaining these two guys. And Bugs realizes that he cannot defeat Yosemite by being a competition, but he needs to convince him that he is Emma. And this is where we get Granny's real name, Emma Webster. Side note, the voice actress that voices Granny now, Candy Milo, was on the podcast, and she absolutely loved that. Yeah. And she said that she should get an embroidery of Emma Webster on her purse, and I hope she does. I hope she does one day.
That's so cool.
But I love the fact that Bugs is able to just get one over on Yosemite in the drag, in the grandma outfit, and pretend to be the helpless old lady running around and being chased by Yosemite, and then getting him, vulnerable again. And, when he's out of it, the real Granny offers him tea, and then Bugs comes around the corner with some tea and sugar. And she goes, how many lumps would you like? And Yosemite goes, 2. And then obviously a mallet comes out of nowhere and smacks him on top of the temple. It's great comedy.
Yeah.
It's great comedy. Yeah. But again, this is a really great example of Bugs in drag. How did it hit you when you saw Bugs dressed as Granny?
It was another unique way of him doing drag.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes he's his own unique personality that he had, came up with, and other times he's impersonating someone else.
Exactly.
So it was really funny to see him impersonating another character.
Yes, one that they've both met.
Yes. Yeah. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I'm actually questioning Yosemite's methods here, because he should have become aware that the other gentleman that he came in with was no longer around. But he got there eventually. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was on, aisle to get married is whenever he realized. And only after Bugs's wedding gown got pulled off by a nail.
I cannot.
And Yosemite looks over and sees the cottontail and realizes he's been had.
It's always the tail that gives things away. It reminds me of when Taz was like, "You're not a monkey." It's like, dude, that's what you notice first. That's what makes you think he's not a monkey, because of his tail. So the same thing happened here. It's like, oh, the tail.
The tail gave me away.
Not the fact that your face is totally different. You're dressed like her.
I love the gown that Bugs is wearing for the wedding. It's so elegant, and she's got a bouquet, and the white little hat,
like part, a bonnet.
It's a bonnet, thing. Yeah. It's not like the bridal.
No.
What's that called? The veil.
The veil.
There's no veil. It's just a bonnet, and it's really nice. And if you have the Looney Tunes Ultimate Visual Guide, there's actually a rare drawing of a preliminary look at Bugs, which is just as adorable as it is in the short.
There actually is a small little veil.
Oh, there's a little veil.
It's so bizarre. It's like you took a bonnet and sewed fabric to the back of it.
Wow.
That's what this is.
Bugs made it
This is
himself.
very, very unique wedding accessory that I've never seen again on anybody.
Yeah. That's
So
a shame.
we should all do. I should have done this. I'm like, I keep looking at this. It looks like a nightcap or like a shower cap.
Right.
With a fabric at the back.
I mean, maybe that's one of the resources he had.
But he
pull
had
together.
to hide his ears.
Right. Oh, he has to hide the ears.
That's
yeah.
I'm like, duh, logic. Yeah, I mean, looking at all these photos in the book, there's always a hat involved, and or obviously a wig. But sometimes it's just a hat.
Yeah.
That's concealing the ears, and that's enough. That's enough.
That's enough
for these.
For it to win one over on the intrepid hunter or skeeving businessman who wants to get an old
Never
lady
mind
to
those bunny teeth.
lose her money.
Yeah. It's like it's like a Clark Kent thing.
It really is.
I'm like, really? You don't
it really
know?
is like a Clark Kent thing. And Bugs has donned the Superman cape, so maybe that's where it comes from.
No, well, perhaps.
Yeah.
That's where Bugs knows how to change so rapidly.
Fun fact, in the episode Super Rabbit, whenever he goes into the phone booth to become Super Rabbit with the parody of Superman's costume, he first comes out as Little Bo Peep.
Of course. Yes. It's like once you're saying this, it all starts coming back to me, and I remember that Little Bo Peep. That is so funny. It's like, hold on, I got to do this first. And then. He's just showing off at this point.
He plays to the audience. He knows who his audience is.
He knows.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Of course. That's why he's iconic and the best. So whenever they're going to elope, there's another gag where Bugs as Granny is tossing down everything but the kitchen sink to Yosemite Sam at the bottom. And then he throws out the kitchen sink. And it's just one of those gags that, you know, it's never not funny. Like you always know it's going to come and it works every time.
It works every time.
Works for a reason.
It always pays off.
And it's animated beautifully. So what else can we say about Hair Trimmed except, you know, all of these directors are geniuses and it holds up. Like all of these jokes are really funny even now.
Yeah.
So we have one left, and it is obviously one of the most iconic shorts of all time. And that is 1/3 of the Hunter trilogy. This is Rabbit Seasonings. This is the second one, coming in at 1952, written by Michael Maltese, directed by Chuck Jones. And just hands down, this is where pronoun trouble comes from. This is just Elmer getting duped. And it's a battle of the wits between Daffy and Bugs and who will outwit who. It is phenomenal. It is top tier. You just watched this short. Like, what's a standout for you?
One of the standouts for me is when it's the quote. It's a quote. Where Bugs,
so many good ones.
I know. When Bugs kisses Elmer, naturally, it's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen. He's kissing Elmer, and in the woman's voice, Bugs is like, "Yes, I would love a duck dinner." And then Elmer shoots Daffy, and his bill always comes off. It's so funny. Like that was always like one of the funniest things to me.
Yeah.
Was when Daffy's beak just fell off.
Yeah, this has some of the best Daffy beak positions. Like they make no sense to how they are staying on Daffy's face, but they're
anatomical
hilarious.
sense.
Exactly.
Whatsoever. But this was probably my favorite because of the rivalry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's like a triangle situation.
Take a peek up and see if he's still around. Righto. Is he still there? Still lurking about. I tell you what, you go up and act as a decoy and lure him away. No more for me, thanks. I'm driving. Ah, well, like they say, never send a duck to do a rabbit's job.
Yeah. I've always loved their rivalry, so.
And this is where the rivalry started, because before this, Daffy was more of the woohoo, like crazy Daffy. And then Chuck Jones took the character and completely reinvented him for this.
Yeah.
And this, like, audiences love this, obviously. But I got to give it up to just the animation behind pulling all of these models off, like having the bills, but also after Elmer is kissed, the way he walks up to Daffy to shoot him, like he doesn't even pull the trigger. Like he just like waddles over, like he's so in love and infatuated. He just waddles over and then the gun goes off.
Come on out. I got you covered. Him.
Surely you're not going to be taken in by that old gag.
Isn't she lovely?
Perfect shot. I guess Elmer's a better hunter when he's in love.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Maybe. I also love the fact that Daffy sees right through the costume. Daffy is never fooled by Bugs in drag. And I think that is one of the hard rules that they set for that rivalry to work. And it's so funny because it's like a comedian seeing the tricks of another comedian.
Yes.
And them like attacking each other with their own like jokes and everything like that. And like they become defensive. Mm-hmm. And I think that defensiveness is what works in everyone's favor, like that's watching this.
Yeah.
So, you know, hands down, this is just a phenomenal short, and it is a really inspired pairing to have Daffy, the Envy Daffy, be going up against the cool, suave, confident Bugs. And Bugs pulls out all the stops. Obviously, we have one of the most iconic in drag scenes where Bugs, I even have a pin of it.
It was one of the best looking yeah, it's one of Bugs's best numbers, I would say.
Yeah. It is. Can you describe the costume here? Like it's this really elegant wig and hat combo.
It's this very like vintagey like pinup look.
Was it called vintage in the 50s?
I guess not. Just kidding. It was exactly part of the era. But it was very pinup 50s.
Yes, pinup 50s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That light pink blouse.
Yes.
The blue skirt and the high heels.
The heels. That's what I love. That's what I noticed first.
And the way that they are latched onto the upper leg, like it's so unique.
I was like, damn.
Like they really took the time to, you know, place it on the character. And I think it comes off as like Bugs knows how to dress himself. That
to me was probably one of the best looks I had seen. And that's what made me, when I was rewatching it again, I was like, that's when my first thought came to me about, damn, Bugs is really good at hair and makeup, or like, Jesus. He's always in fake lashes.
Always in fake lashes. And sometimes those lashes are personified and they can actually call people over.
Oh, yeah. Those lashes are like come hither lashes.
Exactly. Speaking of that, that happens whenever he's a mermaid.
I would. Good fake Can lash. You imagine if like Bug, like if you could just take a tour of Bugs's closet?
I mean, it would go on forever, but it would be amazing. Like all
Endless.
These iconic. I mean, that's what the WB tour should do. They should have an area where you can go in Bugs' closet and you see somebody recreating these iconic looks.
That would be...
I just give ideas to WB all the time and they never take them, so...
Now I'm starting to think about cosplay.
Right?
I'm like, has anyone tried to cosplay as one of Bugs and Drag's looks?
I've never seen one, so...
Me neither.
If you want to be the first...
It seems like a challenge, but I'm like, damn, that's pretty, yeah, because the looks are just, I mean, like
I have the
like
ears.
a Disney bound,
yeah,
but like a Warner Brothers
a
bound.
Warner bound, yeah,
a Warner bound. People do it. I mean, I was gonna do a while ago, and I never got to do it, but my husband and I were gonna do Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner bound.
Oh, you should have done it.
I know. We still should.
You should.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, how do I take these like characters and just like humanize?
Sure.
What would they look like as humans?
Right.
So I love that.
Yeah. Would that be anthropomorphized or no? Is that a different word?
In terms of making them look like animals?
No, making them look human. Like what?
Is that the right term?
I don't know what the term would be to go from an animal to a human, besides like metamorphosis or what was that 90s show?
Animorphs?
Animorphs.
I was thinking about Animorphs. Oh my god.
Or like cats.
Yes. Oh god. But yeah, I was like, I want to, because these are some of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And I love cosplaying as like 90s cartoons.
And he has great fashion.
Oh my god, I know.
So you have a lot to pull from.
But those boobs. I don't know how I can compete with Bugs' boobs.
I honestly, like, I don't know where he gets them.
I don't know either.
But they work. They work for him.
They work very well.
And so obviously this conversation is not a end-all be-all. This conversation needs to continue.
Yeah.
And politics and media have a place that need to be talked about and discussed, and it's not a one-way street. And that is where we're at as a society. And we need to have the conversation continue. And that is the point of this show. That is the point of any show that talks about gender politics and anything of the sort. So, dear listener, I hope that you continue this conversation, this lovely conversation that we have had today. I also wanted to quote Wayne's World, because Wayne's World also had a similar conversation, and it was more of a joke for Garth. But he starts with Garth Algar asking Wayne, "Did you ever find Bugs Bunny attractive when he put on a dress and played a girl bunny?" His buddy Wayne didn't, but Elmer Fudd, Yosemite Sam, and the Tasmanian Devil are all just a few of the many males who have been bewitched, bothered, and bewildered by Bugs' seemingly endless wardrobe of women's clothing. Mm-hmm. And that is a wonderful, fascinating character trait that I hope to see even more of in future media. And do you see another character that's currently in animation that can do this type of trickster vibe, or is Bugs unique in that aspect?
I think Bugs is still very much unique in that aspect. I, as someone who is I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but I always feel like my comedy's old school. Like, I love vaudeville. Mm-hmm. I currently take classes with Clown School. I still think that physical comedy is some of the best comedy out there.
Yeah.
And we're not getting as much of that.
Oh, absolutely not.
Especially not in live. Hell, we're not even getting that on SNL. I'm just being real. I'm just like, damn, what's going on?
Yeah.
And in animation, man, I mean, obviously there's so many streaming platforms now. And like, for instance, like, and it's not because I'm in it. Because I'm going to be honest about Jellystone. When I was cast and I got the scripts and I went in and recorded, I didn't even comprehend the script because it was so wackadoo.
Okay.
And the way it was written, I'm like, what is this? And it wasn't until I saw the show and complete episodes where I was like, this is hilarious and unhinged.
Yes.
And I think unhinged, we need more of that. We need more of that, like, absurdist, very, physical comedy, character comedy, vaudevillian style stuff in animation. And we need to let our characters also, again, across the board, live action and animation, but let our characters be flawed.
Sure.
Because I think that's what people loved so much about Bugs. And I mean, first of all, Looney Tunes in general, right? But especially like a rivalry that you saw with Bugs and Daffy. People love that. They love a good roast fest. They love a good rivalry like that. And I don't think that's done in poor spirits or anything, but I have noticed, I don't know, I could be wrong. I could be one of those crotchety elder millennials that's like, kids these days don't know what it was like to watch cartoons in our era, because we saw some crazy stuff. And I remember with like Victor Valentino, like Victor, right, is like this kind of dickish kid. Like, he's this like little rascal. Yeah. And some of the comments that I started seeing from kids on Twitter, they were like, he's too mean.
Oh, I've seen a lot of that too recently.
And I'm like, no. And for me, I thought Victor was hilarious. I'm like, this kid's hilarious because he's such a doofus.
Right.
But I don't know if it's because our generation, that's what we saw a lot of, these like really flawed, wacky characters that they weren't bad, but they weren't good either, you know? Like, they're really, again, like tricksters and schemers. And I think that's what makes, like, Jellystone, I guess, one of the few cartoons I've seen recently made for kids, because obviously adult animation is its own thing.
Sure.
And they can get away with everything. But when it comes to just basic, you know, ages 7 to 12 kids animated shows, I'm not seeing as much of that. Everything's a little more
played down.
Yeah. The characters aren't as like flawed and I don't know.
Yeah.
So then I feel like, and I feel like that's why some kids are not taking a liking to like a character like Victor.
Sure. I can see that. Yeah. I think there's something about the shows that they grew up with that when they see characters being mean to each other, they immediately dislike them. And it goes down to like a personal, like, I guess, vendetta against people being mean to each other.
And I get that.
I get that too. But I guess we're able to disassociate real people from animated characters a little bit better. And maybe because it's a rabbit and a duck. And like maybe it's easier for us back then than all of these shows now. Everyone is animating humans. Like all these characters are humans. So maybe it has to do with that. I honestly don't know.
That could be. I mean, in the case of Victor and Valentino, they're humans.
Right.
Whereas Jellystone, they're animals.
It's a socialist study.
Oh man, this is a whole thing.
It's a whole nother bag of worms.
And obviously, you know, you don't want to be offensive.
No.
You know, in your animation and stuff, but I personally don't see anything wrong in characters like this.
And these characters have been rebranded and redone in numerous iterations. And we still go back to the classics. I have been pulling from all over because that's what I love. I love all of these iterations. Some more so than others. I will preface that. But the newest iteration, I feel, obviously Bugs is still in it, and he's still cross-dressing. Eric Bauza does a phenomenal job voicing him. And Pete Brownguard does a phenomenal job, like making sure that these characters remain as true to the characters they were in the 40s in this new era. And I agree with that. I think that's the best way to represent these characters and not shy away from anything that people might say is, I guess, or Ron DeSantis might say is wrong.
Who cares what that guy thinks?
That's the basis of this podcast. Who cares what Ron DeSantis thinks?
Screw that guy. Oh, God.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for being on this episode with me. You have your own podcast. Please let the listeners know where they can find you over at, is it the
Hyphenated.
Hyphenated.
Yeah. I have a podcast with my co-host, Joanna Hausman, who is a Venezuelan comedian, and she's also a voice actor. We're just these multi-hyphenated, culturally hyphenated comedians. We have a podcast together, and you can check it out on any place you get your podcast from, Spotify, Pandora, etc., etc.
Nice. I was just listening to the one that came up, I think, on Wednesday, and it was about the film festival for web series to TV.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was such a great conversation.
Yeah, and I didn't even know this festival existed. So I'm definitely going to turn in my stuff next year.
Absolutely, yeah. I had no idea.
It's super important, yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, we talk about all kinds of topics. Like, it's not always based on our nationality or culture. It's just always talking to people who live these hyphenated experiences, whether it's career-wise or, again, culturally.
Sure.
So it transcends beyond just, like, where you're from.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have a voice for that out there.
Yeah, of course. And of course, you know, since I'm like the geek out of the two of us, a lot of our episode topics are sometimes about geek culture and stuff like that. We were actually just at the Latino Comics Expo.
Okay.
And that was amazing. We got to like interview a lot of like iconic Latino comic book artists and stuff like that, and creators. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Before the pandemic, they had like 3,000 attendees. So hopefully it grows again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you on social media?
The simplest thing to do is just to Google my name. Because my handles are all over the place, and I've been on social media a long time. So just type Jenny Lorenzo, and you'll find me. Whether it's Instagram, YouTube, I put all my content on pretty much every social platform except Snapchat. I don't know. I'm not 12.
I don't have Snapchat either.
I'm like, what's Snapchat? I used to use it, but yeah. But everywhere else, that's how you can find me.
Awesome. And you play Choo Choo on the Jellystone.
Oh yeah. So you can you can check me out on Jellystone season 1 and 2 on HBO Max, and they also are playing on Cartoon Network. And I voice Bobby Louie, Choo Choo, Hardy Har Har, Pixie. Pixie so far has only been in 1 episode, and I do the sound effects for Spooky.
Cool.
Yes, that's it.
I gotta say, your voice, like the way you go into that deeper register, it reminds me of Slappy Squirrel. And like, if Animaniacs,
I love Slappy.
If Animaniacs ever brings that character back, they should definitely call you.
I auditioned for Animaniacs, but it wasn't for Slappy. I don't know what it was. Such a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the dream to book either Animaniacs or Looney Tunes, but we'll see. It's tough. It's tough to book, but you know.
Well, good luck.
The ones you get, it's always fun and exciting.
Well, you're on your way. You already have your foot in the door. So hopefully more good things come from that.
Thank you.
And you can follow the podcast, Facebook and Instagram at This Means Podcast, and Twitter at OFC, or This Means Pod. Yes, I just changed it. So I added the OFC because, of course, you realize This Means Podcast. It needed the OFC, and James Gunn inspired it.
By the way.
Who I hope to have on the podcast one day.
So, that would be dope.
Well, he's working on the Wile E. Coyote movie, so I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. And as always, that's not all, folks.
Out of sheer honesty, I demand that you tell him who you are. Well, haven't you anything to say? Anything? Out of sheer honesty?
Yes, I would just love a duck dinner.